Okay. Okay. So today I'm going to be interviewing you about your responsibilities regarding district personnel. So first, can you briefly describe your role in overseeing district personnel and what your day-to-day responsibilities look like?
Okay. So basically, I oversee all of the hiring and firing of our personnel in the district. So we have about 1,200 employees, and we have to ensure that if a certification is required, that we check their certifications, that we make sure that they're up to date and all of those things. And then, as campus principals have issues with certain personnel, we have to take those people in and deal with them. So day to day, it looks a little different every day. But basically, I just oversee all of basically hiring and firing of personnel in the district.
Okay. How does the district plan for staffing needs across campuses each year?
Well, the first thing we start with is our enrollment at each campus, and we kind of use that enrollment from year to year to kind of judge how many staff members we need and what roles we have to fill. We basically sit down with the principals and we look through that and we talk through as the year progresses on, who do they know that's leaving and who's staying and that kind of thing. And then, does anybody need to be replaced if they are planning to leave? And that all is based on enrollment.
All right. What data or factors do you rely on most when you're making staffing decisions, like the enrollment projections or different student needs?
Well, it takes a lot of planning. We have to use not only enrollment, I guess, but we look at our EB numbers. We look at our special education numbers. We look at, like I said, enrollment. Um, any kind of retirements that may be coming up, especially with hard to fill vacancies like science classrooms, especially at the secondary level, math classrooms at the secondary level. Um, we just have to kind of know those things ahead of time. And as far in advance as we can get that information, then we can start planning accordingly. But we really have to watch our enrollment because that's obviously where our budget comes from. At the high school level, with CTE, um, if we have a program that the kids are not enrolled in, or their numbers are dropping in those, then we have to make a decision: is that a program that we need to, continue to fund, because CTE is a money making business
Hmm.
in secondary schools. So.
Okay. What strategies does the district use to recruit high quality teachers and staff?
We do job fairs. I mean, we go to job fairs. We try to work with the local universities and colleges and community college to kind of grow our own and get people who need observation hours and student teaching. We try to get them in here onto our campuses to try to, determine, are they someone that would benefit our students and benefit our campus. So we do a lot of working with the universities. Um, like I said, grow our own. We try to, have interns and things like that, um, so that we can, make sure that they learn the way that we want it done, and to see if they're a good fit for us. So obviously we try to stay competitive with our pay, but that also kind of depends on, the funding that we get from the state and any kind of grant or anything that we may have access to.
Okay. Have you found any recruitment methods to be especially effective or ineffective?
Um, Truly, the most effective one that I have found in this role, and when I was on campuses, um, was being able to work with universities and colleges and get those people on our campus, because that gives you a better view of what they'll be able to do and how successful they will be on your campuses. Job fairs are okay, but usually if you're at a job fair, there's 10 other schools there with you. And so you're kind of competing with them. And depending on how far you have to drive to those job fairs, those people may not be
Hmm.
interested in your particular district.
Right.
So truly getting people on your campus, letting them see what you do and being able to see what they do is probably the most beneficial when it comes to recruiting.
Right. I like that. Yeah, I can remember like 12 years ago, when I started out, that was the thing, was to go to the job fairs. But I can see how nowadays, being in this role, um, it's just, again, you're fighting that market, and how do you know, especially in a small district like this, you want to make sure that you are attracting people that want to be here. There's only certain things that are going to make people want to be in a place like this. So obviously they will go for more money or bigger districts or where more opportunity is for their husbands or wives and family. So
yeah, I've been to several college job fairs, and to be honest with you, a lot of times kids go to college wherever they go, and then they move back to wherever they're from, and so those are difficult because you're in education, so you're there with all the other industries that are offering jobs, but truly those kids that are graduating, or those students that are graduating, I guess I should say, not necessarily kids, 9 times out of 10, they're going back to where they came from,
right.
And they're not staying in your area. So it does make it difficult for those to be your main, your drawing point. So,
Okay, what does the hiring process look like from the application process to the final recommendation?
So when a person enters their application on our online system, depending on what job they have applied for on our on the website, it will redirect their application to our department first. Once we kind of weed through and see that these that these are viable candidates and that they have what our district and our campus is looking for, then we can kind of filter those out to the campuses that they belong to. And so then it goes out to the campus principals. So the principals have access to their application, resume, and things like that. And then they're called in for an interview if there's someone that the principal thinks would be a good candidate for their job. After the interview, if that is someone that the principal is interested, or the department head or whoever is interested in hiring, then they will do a recommendation to hire within our system. That then comes back to us, and we start the process of let me back up. Before a principal or a director can say, I want to hire someone, they have to do some reference checks. So they do their reference checks, and then if those all turn out and they have everything in order from their perspective, then it comes to us. We do some more checking to make sure, they're certified, that their background they've passed their background and all of those things. And then we can make a contact and do an official offer for them. Internally, we do have a transfer policy and process. And so in the spring, that opens up to all of our campuses. So if someone is working at one elementary school and would like the opportunity to transfer to another, they put their name on the list. Once that list and that deadline has been met, we send that out to the campus principals and the department heads and all of that. And then they can set up interviews with those people. And then it kind of goes from there, the same way it does with an external applicant.
Gotcha. You think you usually start with your internals first and then go to your externals?
Typically, depending on when the job becomes available, it obviously is nice to have that internal process going first. We try to do that. We like to do that ideally, because then you really know their history and you know their work ethic and you know what they've done.
Right.
Where when you get an external person, you're really kind of going on the information that they give you.
Right.
But it is nice to have that internal process. Sometimes the timing doesn't work out as to when the job opening opens up and when the process has been cut off. And so, things like that happen. But typically we do like to do that. Yes.
Okay. How do you ensure that candidates selected are a strong fit for both the district and specific campuses?
Looking at their credentials, first of all, looking at their certifications, making sure that you call those references. I have worked in places before where it was not a priority to call those references, and 9 times out of 10, you regret that decision after you've made that hire. It usually ends up ending in a separation between you and that person. Making sure that they have passed their background check and things like that, but also just ensuring that when that person interviews this candidate, that they have a really good, firm understanding and feel for how that person will fit in their campus. You can have a great candidate and it just is not going to work at a particular campus just due to the makeup of the rest of the staff. And so we try to put that responsibility back on our campus principals and department leads and things like that. because they know their campus and their program best.
Mhm.
So anyway, there's a lot of steps you go through, but ultimately are they a good fit for your particular job and place?
Okay. What kind of onboarding or induction support is provided for your new hires, especially your first year teachers?
So our first year teachers, well, first of all, each grade level on our campuses has a team lead. It's not a compensated team lead, but that person is usually chosen by the principal, who has a good firm foundation and background in instruction and has a good relationship with the people on their team. And so we try to give that person, that team lead, an opportunity to work directly with their new person, especially the brand new teachers. We hope that our principals will be able to work with them and our instructional coaches and different people to onboard them. They come in, we do a new staff orientation. It's usually one day a year, right before school starts back. They do some online modules and things like that. And then we turn them out to their campus so that their campus can work with them on specific campus things. We don't have a specific mentor-mentee program right now, but we are working to develop one of those. Right now, we truly depend on our campus principals and the grade level team leads to take over that.
Okay. How does the district approach compensation and benefits to stay competitive with surrounding districts?
Well, for the most part, in our area, we do pay more than the districts that surround us, and so that's nice. That is a good selling point for our district. But we, with state funding the way that it is, it makes it pretty difficult to continue to raise. It makes it more and more difficult to continue to raise that every year, and so we try really hard to stay on top of the people in our area. We can't necessarily compete with others outside of our area, but we do try to stay competitive there. And that really, we do TIA. We have given retention bonuses before. We do offer stipends to people who do extra roles in some cases, not our team leads, but we do offer stipends to certain roles so that we can, entice them to do some extra things. But our main thing is we try to stay competitive with the districts surrounding us. And that seems to have worked thus far for our district.
Good. I know that this will be our second year with TIA, and so that was a big thing, I feel like, because other districts around us were starting to pick that up. And so just having that opportunity as a classroom teacher, I feel like no matter where you go, that's a good selling point. Okay. How are staff members evaluated across the district?
We use the T-test appraisal system for classroom teachers. And so we follow that. That is part of their TIA opportunity, is their T-test evaluation. It's about half of that score. Now, not everyone's a classroom teacher, and so like our administrators go through the T-test program. That's their appraisal system. We have a locally developed one for paraprofessionals and other employees that don't fall within the T-test system. So. And then the TIA, of course, does cover, because T-test is embedded in our TIA plan, that is one area that it judges growth and things like that. So that's kind of an evaluation system in and of itself.
Okay. How do the evaluation systems support professional growth rather than just their accountability?
So our T-test, it's kind of a growth model. And so, you have a rubric that you follow, and our campus principals who evaluate teachers, you can move from needs improvement to developing to proficient. And anytime a teacher has a question about why I got this rating, we are able to use that T-test rubric to show them, well, this is what you did. This is where you fell.
Mhm.
If you want to move to the next rating, these are the things you have to do. And so it is a growth model. That's what T-test was developed to be. Within the T-test system, every teacher at the beginning of the year has to set a professional goal, so that they can continue to grow as a professional. So like this year, a lot of our elementary school teachers used the implementation of the Bluebonnet curriculum as their professional goal because that was something new. They were not comfortable with it. And over the course of a year, our principals have seen those teachers grow tremendously in that area, because, and that was a good goal for them to set. It really did help them grow. They also set a student growth goal in there, along with the professional goal. And so then that kind of allows them to look back and see, is what I'm doing in the classroom and my professional, work, is that being effective to really affect student growth?
Does that typically align with what like the TIA is looking for as well?
Yeah. Student growth is the second component of our TIA plan.
Okay. Okay. What is the general process when performance concerns arise with an employee?
Most of our principals handle that. Most of our directors handle that on their campus, unless it gets to the point where their professionalism or their growth and performance is not improving. And then, we get to November, December, and it's not getting any better, and the principals have worked with them, then it's time for us as a HR to sit down with the principals and say, okay, let's look at what we've done, because we may be looking at a situation where we need to separate from that employee or terminate that employment at the end of their contract. And so, typically in the past, people have used growth plans. Like I said, T-test is a growth plan in and of itself. And so I'm not a firm believer in that growth plans work. They really don't. It's just more work for the principal and the director and all of that stuff. So, anyway, we just support our campus leaders and our directors as best we can through that process. If we get to the point where it's time to help that employee make a different decision as far as their next year of employment, then we step in and help that campus administrator do that, just because we're kind of the experts in that field. And so we don't want to leave that. Their expertise is instruction. Our expertise is employment and the hiring and firing of employees. And so we want to make sure that we support them through that whole process. But usually around November, December, we have those conversations. Around March, we make those final decisions, and then we have the conversation with the employee after that, I think it's time for us to go apart, go our separate ways, if that's the process that we need to go with.
Okay, we're almost done. How does the district handle dismissal when ensuring fairness and compliance with policy?
Well, I think first and foremost is just having a respect for all of our employees, and knowing that in the whole process, there is a process. It's not just that I can walk in one day and say, Ms. Davis, I don't think we're going to bring you back. That's not how education works in the state of Texas. That's not how it goes. So they have due process. You've got to give them a reasonable amount of time, and be prepared for what may come after you issue that decision. Always stay professional. Always go at it in a professional manner, and always be under the assumption that they may file a complaint or a grievance. And so that's why you've got to have your ducks in a row before you go to that meeting and tell them this is what the district has decided to do. Because there is always the possibility that maybe that person doesn't want to resign, and maybe they're not going to resign.
Right.
And the best case scenario for everybody is that once you have that conversation, the person issues you a resignation letter. If they refuse to do that, and we have had that situation, it's never a pretty process after that, because you've got to move to termination. Once you've moved to termination, they still have access to come back and file a grievance or a complaint. So if that's the way it goes, then you especially need to make sure before you get there that you've got all your ducks in a row and you're ready to defend your decision
Right.
to terminate. So,
Yeah. After taking just these last couple of courses, I can see how important documentation is. I feel like that has been drilled into us a ton, and I can see, especially in a situation like that, why you need to have that documentation.
9 times out of 10, they resign. And truly, the number of people who don't resign, who refuse, and then you have to move forward with termination is slim. But those are always the ones that you remember, and those are always the ones. And 9 times out of 10, they resign because you've already worked with them so much that they realize this is coming from the word jump. I mean, they've known since probably the second 6 weeks that this is not going the way I thought it would go.
Right.
And so it's usually not an element of surprise. Sometimes, even though you've done all of that back work, they still are surprised. And so that's when you get the compliance and the grievance and all complaints and things like that. But the more documentation you can have, the better. Just because you said it to them doesn't mean it happened. It's got to be written somewhere. And you honestly have to prove that they read it.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing is just making sure you're in compliance.
Right. Okay, final question. What advice would you give a campus leader when it comes to managing and supporting personnel effectively?
Consistency is the key. You know, you get on a campus, and as a campus leader, it's hard to not like some people more than other people. It is hard, but they can never know that. And you like the ones who do their job and do it really well. I mean, that's what happens because they are taking care of you.
Right.
It's the ones who are not taking care of you and your kids that cause you problems that you are not real crazy about. And so, but you have to be consistent and fair with all of them. So when you are getting on to someone about something, you make sure you handle it with that person and not the whole group. Even if it's someone that you really like and who does a really good job, you still have to have those hard conversations. One of my mentors said, you eat the frog first thing in the morning. And so what she meant by that was you don't put off till 2:00 what is going to be hard. You do it first thing in the morning, you get it over with, and you go about your day. And that does a couple of things. Number one, you don't have to sit and worry about it all day.
Right.
Because you probably worried about it all night. Number two, it allows you to still show your professionalism throughout that day to whatever person you had to eat the frog with. You know what I mean? And it allows them to see that you can remain professional, even though this is not a fun situation that you just had to handle.
Right.
But, you know, most importantly, you never want to have a really hard conversation with somebody and then send them home.
Yeah.
You know, you have to care about that individual too. And so just keep that in mind. And document, and keep all the documentation. Because at some point, if you've had to document, you're going to want it later on, more than likely.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you meeting with me today, and this is all a lot to take in, but very valuable and good information that I look forward to really internalizing and hopefully putting to use one day.
Good luck. I know you will.
Thank you.